let's discuss a couple objections to the kind of plan that I talked about last week, which is a massive federal government spending program to revive our economy by creating jobs and rebuilding our infrastructure to make us more competitive in the 21st century. The biggest objection to this kind of plan I touched on last week, and it's what I call deficit paranoia. The idea that cutting spending and thus cutting the federal deficit is the most important thing we can do right now because the deficit's out of control, and if we don't get it under control now, it'll, put us behind the eight ball for generations. Well, I consider this kind of thinking to really be inappropriate and ill-timed. Actually, what's the most important thing right now is we restart our economy. Then we can handle the federal deficit. Having no income, no tax revenue coming in right now because of the down economy is actually one of the things that's keeping the deficit huge. When we get the economy flourishing again, that will have more tax revenue come in and enable us to deal with the deficit much more easily. Let me give you a couple analogies. It's also kind of like, this is kind of how I see concern about the deficit right now. Imagine if you were unemployed and you also had a big credit card debt. Well, you would need to get a job to make more money to pay down that debt. But if your concern was about paying down your debt and not getting a job, you would actually never get your debt paid off. If you said, I can't put this trip to this job interview on my credit card right now, well, then you're never going to get a job. And then you're never going to repay your debt. Or if you were, here's another good analogy. If you were a patient in a hospital and you're dying, and you had a lot of credit card debt, would you say, you know what? I got to really restart paying my debt right now. I can't get this life-saving operation another time. No, that would be crazy. You would get the operation and then get healthy and get back to work so you could repay your debt. I'm beating a dead horse here, but you get the point. We've got to get our economy restarted before we worry about repaying the debt. We get our economy restarted, it will get much easier. Now, here's the other major objection that some people have to a big government spending program to create jobs. The objection is that such a spending program will actually take money out of the hands of private businesses by putting it in a government program. In other words, banks would now lend less to private businesses and more to the government through buying treasuries. Well, this is a lot of nonsense because right now banks are not doing a lot of lending to private businesses. This is part of the problem. Banks got devastated in the financial crisis and they're still not well. They still have a lot of bad debt on their books and they're really not looking to take any risks. And making big infrastructure loans to private businesses to create jobs is not something they're even particularly interested in. Now, however, they are interested in lending to the federal government. How do I know? Because they're buying treasuries, because it's safe. Here's the thing, long-term treasuries, U.S. government debt, is only about 2% right now. This, by the way, also points to the confidence that our creditors have in the U.S. economy. And by the way, one of the themes that I really want to get across in these videos is that we really can alter this situation. We are not doomed to a long-term economic downturn. We can really get the economy going again, but it's not going to happen by itself. It will take proactive action to really get it restarted. So anyway, coming back to banks, they're happy to lend us money, even at 2%, because it's a safe investment. They know they'll get repaid, and they're looking for safe investments. So this money is not money that was otherwise going into private jobs. It's money that banks were hoarding to deal with when their bad debt came due. There's a lot of money being hoarded and saved in the economy. And when people buy treasuries, buy government debt, that money gets off the shelf, gets into the economy, increases demand, and really restarts the engine. Now, what that government program will look like will be the subject of my next video. Thanks very much for listening.